knowledge is power.
Yeah.
Educate yourself. Learn about it. Don't listen to other, one person's opinion on it. Listen to all of them.
Yeah.
Make your own decision.
What's up, you beautiful beasts? I'm Katie. I'm on a mission to help humans become the best possible versions of themselves and to strive for overall health, mental health, emotional health, physical health, all of the healths, without ever having to step on a scale. I have had the privilege to talk to all kinds of different humans who've been through a plethora of experiences just being a human and existing. I believe that every single time somebody shares their story, at least one person listening will learn from it, be inspired by it, and maybe, just maybe, even change the entire direction of their life. These are the stories of humans unveiling their beautiful beast. Keep listening. This is the Unveiling the Beast podcast. What up, beasts? Welcome back to the show. Today, I'm hanging out with my big brother, Tony. This is my first outdoor episode, so please enjoy the beautiful naturey sounds in the background. Tony has done a lot of growing up in the last 10 years, and during our time outside, we discussed his new adventure as a budding nomad. We also talked about his success with cryptocurrency, what it was like for him growing up with the unique learning style, and how it has benefited him when it comes to mastering any topic he becomes interested in. As always, I hope something lands with you today. I hope something you hear tugs on your heartstrings, and or I hope you laugh. Ladies and gentlemen, I am with Tony Parrovechio. Parrovechio.
Wow, you even said it right.
Well, I mean, that is my maiden name, so. Tony's my brother, and he stinks, but not really. I just tell people he stinks. We've both been in the same womb, and he did tell me at one point that he tagged in there so that when I was in there, I'd have some stuff to look at. So.
I put my gang sign near the opening to the cervix.
There you go. Hey, Mom. But anyway, Tony is on the show. I've been trying to get him on the show for a while, and he's like, dude, I don't know what I'm going to talk about. But now he has quite a bit to talk about, I think.
Yeah, but you got to ask me questions about it.
Yeah, I
don't
know.
want to just
Stop telling me what to do, big brother.
Okay.
So, first, before anything, can you tell our listener who you are?
I'm nobody. My name's Tony. I don't really know what else to say. Well, on December 1st, 1982, I was born. I don't remember if they smacked me on the ass or not, but and there's no pictures of that, so it could have happened, maybe, but I don't know.
No photographic evidence.
Right.
Yeah.
Gosh, man, I really don't know. I'm sure there's a lot that I could say, but I don't really know what to say specifically.
Well, right now, I would venture to say that you are, would you call yourself a nomad?
I'm moving in the direction of nomadism.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty much there. But yeah, I think that's where I'm going. I think that's the ultimate goal. Who says you gotta live in an apartment that costs $2,000 a month and work a 9-to-5 job so you can pay for that apartment and feed yourself, with really expensive food and put really expensive gas in your car and, have insurance and all that, mainstream societal stuff. It just it's not working out for me.
Yeah.
So I'm trying something different, and I have no idea how it's going to turn out. There's probably a lot of it that's going to suck balls.
Mm-hmm.
But that's kind of the point. Like, I want hardship I want struggle, because struggle makes a man stronger. And when he comes out the other side, he's a better man for it. And woman, but I'll just speak for myself as a man. And just for me personally, there's no real struggle in life in modern society, right? In modernity is what it's called in the books that I read. And so men these days, and there's other reasons for this, but men these days are not strong men anymore. They're weak men. And I don't want to be one of those. I want to at least be strong enough to conduct myself in life until I die.
Yeah. Well, from what I understand, well, of course I understand it because I saw you go through it, but you were stuck in that for a long time, the 9 to 5 in an apartment, buying expensive food for you and your cat. And like, I think my question for you would be like, when did you realize that you didn't want to be like that anymore? Or was there an event that happened that made you go, oh, fuck this, I don't want to live in this situation anymore? Even though it wasn't necessarily a negative situation, it just was.
Well, it wasn't really one event. I mean, it was probably the last decade, about the last decade of learning kind of how the world works. You know, when I think about it, I'm 40 now. When I was 30, I kind of did the same thing. I did this huge change in my life. When I was 30, I thought that's what I wanted. I thought that that's what I was supposed to do. Get my own apartment, you know, work your job. And I've never been well fitted to like the main things that people do in society, right? Like I've always been kind of maladjusted to the way things work.
Like social norms?
Social norms, or just, you know, living standards. But I thought that that's what I wanted. And, you know, back then I thought a lot of, you know, being able to be a provider for a woman, because I was single at the time and always had, you know, trouble obtaining dates, I guess you could say. And I realized at the time that it was probably because I didn't have much to offer. And so I thought having, you know, a car and an apartment and a job, that all that would make me a more fitting suitor. But it's also, you know, at some point in your life, you got to try it out. You know, you have your own place, your own apartment. But yeah, I started just learning things about myself and the world, and just doing what I do with, you know, ADD and being on the spectrum. I tend to zero in on specific topics, and I'll learn everything there is to know about it. And so there have been many different topics, many different hobbies, many different things that I've gotten into that over a 10-year period have kind of changed my perception of the world and life and what my purpose is here, which I don't know what that is, actually. You know, so fast forward to now with this head full of knowledge that is probably different from, you know, what most people think is normal. This is just where I ended up. This is the decision that I made. You know, I don't know how else to explain it. A lot of it is just really internal, deep, you know, searching inside yourself to find out what you are really all about.
Yeah.
You know, to find out who I actually am. And that's yet to be determined.
Yeah. That's hard for a lot of people to do too, is to go inside. Because a lot of people want other people to tell them who they are when it's really all on the inside. You know, you're a beautiful beast.
Yeah.
It's on the inside.
I think it's difficult because people have trouble being honest with themselves about the bad things.
Yeah.
You know, and we all have shortcomings. We all have things about ourself and about our personality that maybe we didn't understand before, but when we're faced with it, some people just, they don't want to face it. Me, I embraced it. When I realized certain shortcomings of me and my personality, I really wanted to just understand what they really were and the nature of them and where they came from and why I have them. And those things are stuck with you no matter what you do.
Yeah.
But knowing about them, you can try to make changes and try to, if they're bad things, maybe try not to do them. But it also opens us up a world of new experiences that you could have and new ways of defining yourself and stuff like that. And for me, it took me to nomadism, I guess that's what you'll call it.
Yeah.
Not that it's an ideology, but it's like, I just like the idea of living in a little capsule and being able to move it and go wherever I want.
That's cool. Yeah, in the coaching world, we call that our programming. So, like, one thing I'm learning is there's never anything actually wrong with the person. It's just the programming. And people go in to find where that programming came from and how they can tweak it to make it, to do new programming, so to speak. So there's never anything wrong with the person, just the way they're programmed. Because we're programmed from the moment we're born. So
one thing I needed to understand about that, if you use the analogy of programming, like a computer programming, when you reprogram something, you have to delete the old stuff that you don't want.
Yes.
And there's always a ghost of that stuff left over, right?
Ooh, I've never thought about it that
There's
way.
always something left on the chip. It's just not defined in the database. So watch out, because it could come back and,
Ooh,
bite you in the ass.
that just gave me the chills. I've never thought of that before.
But it really
it's
is
true.
like that, because I was dead set programmed in a specific way, and having to unprogram myself and reprogram myself with different things. Those old things are still there. They're never going away.
Yeah.
So I'll never be what I really truly want to be because of that. But I could always strive for it.
Yeah. That's all we can do, right?
Mm-hmm.
So tell me more about what you're learning living in this camper. By the way, he's got a really cool camper. This is my first outdoor episode. Tony thought it'd be cool if we had like birds chirping in the background. I'm like, hell yeah, let's do it. But yeah, you've been telling me things like you really need to pay more attention to the way you're living.
Yep.
For example, like when you take a dump, or like when you take a shower, and how much water to use.
Well, first of all, I don't like calling it a camper, because I'm
sorry. Your house.
I'm not really camping necessarily. I don't like calling it an RV either. Something sounds wrong about it. I just like calling it my rig.
Your rig, there you go.
My rig. Because I think of it more like a space capsule, right? It's like my living quarters in the space capsule, only it's not a spacecraft. It's a land craft.
Ooh.
And yes, living like this, you got to be more intentional about what you do, about things that normally people take for granted, like flushing the toilet. For instance, right now, I've been in Mom's driveway for 2 weeks, and the black tank is getting kind of full. I've got to do something about that. I am responsible for my own sewage. Now, most people would be like, "Fuck, I don't want to deal with that. That's crazy."
Or just go in your mom's house and take a dump.
But there's an aspect of freedom to it, because with freedom comes responsibility. If I want to be free like this, then I'm fucking responsible for my own sewage.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is. And it's really not that bad. But yeah, tomorrow I've got to do something about it, or it's going to become a problem that I definitely won't want to deal with. Also, you got to clean this thing every single day. Every day. And I got the cat in there.
How's she liking it?
She's actually fine.
Grumpy old lady.
She's actually not. I guess it's just with kids. But, I got a harness for her I put the harness on her every day and I take it off at night. She's used to that. I've had her on a leash before. You can't really like guide her, but she can go wherever and you just follow her around. So I've been taking her outside and letting her roam around. Problem is she just keeps wanting to eat grass. When she eats grass, she yaks it up on the floor in the rig, and there's not much floor, so you got to clean that up immediately.
Yeah.
But yeah, everything it gets messy real easy because when you're just doing your daily, just cooking, right? Like I boil eggs in the morning, right? And then I have a couple other things that I throw in a bowl. But when I'm done, there's really only a pot, a bowl, and a couple of utensils. But it's so much in this little spot, and you have to take care of it right away, or it's just gonna be a mess, which I don't like. I like to keep things clean, and I try to have a no shoes policy in there, but when I'm in and out all the time, it's basically impossible. Yeah. So then you got to vacuum. I got to get down on my hands and knees with a wash rag to clean the floor because I don't have any room for a mop or a Swiffer or anything like that.
Oh, wow.
So it just makes more sense to do it with a wash rag and then that wash rag's going in the laundry. Just little things like that. And then the whole aspect of like the rigging and hooking it up to your truck and all that stuff and learning about gross vehicle weight ratios and stuff. That's like totally my bag. So I just dig stuff like that. When you live like this, every aspect of it is your responsibility.
That's really cool.
So the things that you normally pay for when you rent an apartment are now your responsibility. If it breaks, I got to fix it. If the toilet overflows, that's my problem. And no one else is going to fix that for me.
Yeah.
It's a pain in the ass, but I like it.
Yeah. How much does that tank hold?
I think the black and the gray tanks are 30 gallons each.
Okay.
The black lasts a lot longer. The gray doesn't last that long at all. If you take a shower, that's a third of the tank right there. It's taking a shower, too. Not just a small space, but you really got to watch your water. Especially if you're hooked up to water and you don't have a sewer hookup, like the gray tank just fills right up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And luckily it's just gray, like you could dump it in dirt and whatnot, but there's a valve in the shower that anytime I don't need water, you got to turn it off because you're just putting water down the drain that doesn't need to go there. I got used to washing dishes with half the water power coming out because you just don't want it. The gray tank fills up pretty quick. Everything is different. Every way to live is different. And people who've gone camping in one of these get it, but doing that for an extended period of time, I got to get used to it.
Yeah. I agree with you, though. I think I just call them campers out of habit, but like if you take one of these to a campsite, I don't really think that's camping. I think camping is like either outside on the ground or in a tent.
Yeah, I've always thought that too.
Yeah. Like Des and I this weekend went camping in our backyard. We have a tent back there.
Yeah.
But then does that count because it's not on a campground or in a forest or...
No, that's camping. It's in your backyard, but it's camping.
Yeah. So from here, and here I mean Mom's house, where are you going after this? I know the answer, but...
Santa Fe, New Mexico. I'll be parking in Heather's backyard. Mm-hmm. And we're going to do a thing, at least for now, where I have my space, she has hers. I'll probably be sleeping in the house. I'm going to set up my whole network and all my servers in the house. Probably bring my clothes in there and all that. Not really live in the RV while I'm there. So that's why I'm not like really nomading.
Yeah.
But I could book anytime we want, anytime we want to just hit the road, we can hit the road.
Yeah.
And we've got a place to be. So I kind of like that. And after that, I don't know.
Do you have plans on your way to New Mexico to like, are you going to take your time or are you going to just like go straight there? Are you going to stop at every campsite you can think of?
Well, because I'm kind of moving there, I'll be bringing a lot of stuff. It's a Toyota Tacoma, so it's going to be really slow going.
Yeah.
Dragging that trailer. So yeah, I am going to take my time. I'll probably stop at rest areas and Walmarts and stuff. But I got reservations at a campground in Santa Fe, so I'm going to park there for the first couple of days. So we got the cat, and I don't know what I'm going to do about her. So it's not like I'm just going there and I'm there. Like, I'll be in Santa Fe for a few days before I actually get to the final destination.
That's cool.
And then, I don't know, look for work, or I don't know, with my reserves, I could go a little while without working. It's not ideal, because then your everything I built in the last couple of years just kind of slowly gets eaten away.
Yeah.
And that sucks. That sucks to see that, because it took a lot to build, a lot of learning, and when I finally got to where I was, it was like, wow, cool. And then everything changed. Now I don't have an income anymore.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's the way it goes.
Yeah.
That
was going to be my next question, is like, I know before this and during your time of, I have a 9 to 5, I live in an apartment, and this is just my routine, you also learned about a new source of income, and as you said, your learning style, you just went all in on it.
Yep. I've learned about a lot of things.
Yeah.
Cryptocurrency. And, it started with gold and silver. But it wasn't just gold and silver, it was learning why gold and silver. I ended up learning about our financial system that we've been living under for decades and decades and decades, and how it's changed and what it's become and what it actually is now. And when you really start to learn about, you don't even really have to learn about the intricacies of how it works. There's pretty simple concepts like our money isn't actually backed by anything, and they just make it whenever they want. Those things are actually true. A lot of people think they're conspiracy, but they're actually true. That's what they do.
Yeah.
And it's not even that they admit it. They tell you that's how it works, right?
Yeah.
And so, I started to realize, well, the U.S. government is racking up all this debt, and they're paying interest on that debt, and they're taxing us more and more and more. And then COVID came along, and I saw them just print gobs and gobs and gobs of money, and it's like, by that time I was already pretty far into it. So it started with gold and silver, and crypto was always an interest, but I just didn't get into it yet. And then I did. And once I learned the 3 questions that I like to, when I talk about this with people, because it's really best that you go and find this stuff out for yourself. And what I tell people is just learn about Bitcoin. What is it? How does it work? Why does it exist? Answer yourself those 3 questions in as great detail, as thoroughly as possible, and you'll figure it out pretty quick. And once I understood how blockchains worked, once I understood how Bitcoin worked in particularly, and then like things like what Ethereum is, when you're doing smart contracts where you can have whole entire financial services that are not controlled by a third party, necessarily, depends on what it is, and that you can participate in an entire financial system that's separate from the one that we all work in today. And it's a new technology, and it's something that once you figure out those 3 questions, it's like obviously the future of how we're going to do money. And that was it. I was hooked. I learned everything that I could about it. I learned about smart contracts. I use them. I play around with them. I learned how they worked. And ended up doing pretty well for myself. Ended up putting money away, which I never did my whole life. You know, every paycheck I bought some silver. And when I could, I bought some gold. And then crypto came along. Every paycheck, I put some money into the crypto. Then you learn about the market cycles and how that all works. There's a 4-year cycle to Bitcoin where it has these massive ups and then these massive downs. And then it kind of goes sideways for a couple of years. And it's a 4-year cycle. And my first cycle, I knew that was how it worked. But then I got to experience it for myself, and that's it. There's no turning back. I'm always going to be in it. And then now I've gotten to the point where I know a lot about I have an understanding of what's going on in our current financial system and have decided to opt out of it. So I have a bank account because you still need a bank account these days.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, I'm not participating. No loans, no credit, no services, just put my money in there and then I'll do with it as I see fit. And it's none of your business.
It almost seems like it fits the, what did you call it? Nomadism? Yeah, it almost fits that because you're technically off the grid when you're in your rig, right? And so that part of you's off the grid, and then also your finances are off the grid. So it feels like it all blends together. Yeah.
Yep. But it's risky, dude. What I'm doing it's risky. I wouldn't recommend anybody do it unless they understand it.
Yeah.
Don't just get into crypto. Like, learn about it first. Understand what it is. Understand the risks. And understand the difference between the actual cryptocurrencies and something like FTX, which they're not even the same thing, right? But people see FTX and all these people lost their money in crypto. It's natural that's, normal people would be like, oh, it's a scam. You know what I mean? Which, to be honest, I would say the vast majority of crypto tokens out there are probably scams.
Yeah.
So, knowledge is power.
Yeah.
Educate yourself. Learn about it. Don't listen to other, one person's opinion on it. Listen to all of them.
Yeah.
Make your own decision.
So, you mentioned at some point the name Heather. Can you tell me who Heather is?
Heather is my girlfriend.
Oh, does she stink too?
Yes.
Stinky people stick together.
Yeah.
So, how long has Heather been in your life?
We're coming up on 11 years.
Damn, son.
As a thing. First 5 were together, living together. And for the last 5 or 6 years, she's been in New Mexico and I've been here.
And where's here?
Mojave Desert, Southern California.
Nice.
And that's been pretty tough, at least for me as a man.
Mm-hmm.
And, most long-distance relationships tend to not work out. And there's many legitimate reasons why, but for some reason, we're still hanging on. So with this nomad thing, I got a place to go. I'm going to go be a New Mexico resident for a while.
That's
See how that goes. I get black license plates with chilies on them. It's going to be cool.
That's cool. So you said the first 5 years she was here, and then the last 5 or 6 years she's been there and you've been here. Can you dig into that a little bit deeper?
Well, we met in AA at the Rafters in the Valley. She grew up in New Mexico, and I don't remember exactly what brought her here, but her mom moved here and she moved here. And she was living with her grandparents at the time. And we got together. It all kind of happened pretty, like we never said, okay, you're moving in with me. She just kind of ended up living with me in that new apartment that I had just gotten.
Oh, yeah.
And so, my plan worked. far as having something to offer,
Yeah.
right? And things with us have always been kind of, we've had a difficult time, but we haven't separated yet. We've come pretty goddamn close. And technically, yeah, we did separate because she moved. But what happened is her mom ended up getting cancer and wanted to move back to New Mexico. And we were already having issues at the time. So I had found a place to live out in Quartz Hill. And she moved to New Mexico. Her mom is in remission now.
Nice.
And she's not moving back.
Mm.
She was never gonna move back. And we just didn't know what we were gonna do. We were totally in limbo for all that time until I stopped working at shit, and then kind of opened up endless possibilities, right? Because really the only thing that was keeping me there was the job.
Yeah.
The only thing that was keeping me in California was the job. I don't really want to be in the state of California anymore. And so we just started talking about it, and I can't really move into her place because it's a small place. We're going to kind of meld our lives together, but I'm still going to have my spot. She's going to have her spot.
Yeah.
Right, and that's what the whole idea was, the RV. Get the RV, park in her backyard, and we can still live together, be together.
And if you
and all
need
that
space.
stuff, and we could have our own space, because that was one point of contention in the first 5 years. Is it was a 1-bedroom apartment. We had our own section of the apartment, but we didn't really have our own space to kind of. We're both ADD. We both kind of need the ability to just be alone and be ourselves, and just do our thing, and not that it's a distraction or anything. It's just I've been mostly solitary most of my life, so like I just kind of need that.
Are you both introverts? I only ask because that's how a lot of us introverts unwind. It's just being alone.
Yeah, I am 100%. Not by choice either. It's just.
Oh yeah.
A lot of times I wish it wasn't that way. Heather is an introverted extrovert.
Mm-hmm.
She can be social. She doesn't have the social maladjustment that I have.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's also because she's a woman. But yeah, she's introverted in that she's not always out there trying to be social, and she spends a lot of time alone now, from what I understand. But yeah, I'm definitely an introvert.
And I distracted you and what you were talking about before, because you're ADD, and I was like, oh, are you both introverts? Squirrel.
Yeah, I don't remember what we were talking about even.
Well, you were saying you're both ADD. You were talking about having your own space.
Yeah. And also, well, when it comes to the ADD thing, I was a Ritalin kid at 10 years, 10 years old. I was on Ritalin, and I was on all different kind of medications all through my teen years and shit like that. And then, about 18 years old, I stopped taking the meds. I was like, fuck all this shit, dude. I'm not doing it anymore. They made me feel weird. And then basically since then, I haven't really had treatment for it. I just kind of adjusted, like I adapted. And for a lot of that time, I didn't even want to acknowledge that I had ADD. I thought it was kind of a joke. And then when I learned about the medical industry and, the pharmaceutical companies and all that shit, and I realized, man, they were just pumping some kid full of drugs.
Yeah.
And that's where it gets into my programming, what you were asking earlier. That's part of my programming. Mom and dad split, and I was having trouble in school.
Yeah.
I wasn't like the other kids. I didn't learn like the other kids. I didn't behave like the other kids. I was always punked in school, always bullied. and I couldn't pay attention in the classroom and all this stuff. I don't know if it has to do with the divorce or whatnot.
Yeah.
But it was basically, at that age, it was uncontrolled masculinity. I was 10 years old. You're starting to come into that kind of stuff as a boy, and there wasn't a positive masculine influence in my life that could set me straight. I lived with Mom and you and
Megan and Robin.
And Megan and Robin and Dad we saw on the weekends, and Mom's boyfriends never really hashed out. So there was no man to teach me to be a man or to settle me down or set me straight or, let's just be honest, beat my ass. I probably could have used a few of those. You know what I mean? And so what they thought the solution was to medicate me. I think that was wrong. I think that was the wrong thing to do. And, I don't blame Mom. She just wanted to help me. She didn't know what to do. Yeah. She didn't know any better. She didn't understand that a boy needs a man to raise him. It's absolutely essential, and I didn't have that. So that's part of the programming that I'm trying to reverse, starting at 35 years old, which is why those ghosts are never going away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I had to learn all that shit really, really, really late. And it was when I started to understand things like that, it was really life-changing. So back to the ADD thing, I'm only really just in the last year coming to accept, okay, ADD is actually a thing that I don't suffer from, okay?
Yeah.
I don't like that shit.
I
don't suffer from ADD, okay? I'm not suffering. But it is a fantastic explanation for why I've been so maladjusted to just regular living life, regular society. And then you put on top of that the being on the spectrum, and that explains a lot more even. And so my ADD manifests itself in a specific way, and for men and women, it manifests itself in different ways, very different ways actually. The way I like to explain it is, for Heather, her ADD is like having 5,000 tabs open in your browser.
Ooh.
And you're trying to work with every single one at the same time. She can't do it. It's too much.
Yeah.
Overload, right? She cannot everything is a distraction, right? For me, it manifests itself in a different way, is where maybe I'll have one tab open, or maybe one or two tabs open, and that's all that exists in the world. That's all there is. And it's hyper focus on that one thing. And that tab doesn't get closed or changed or anything until I'm finished what I'm doing. Yeah. And there's no stopping me. And so that's when I'm deep into that, and you could call my name standing right next to me 5 times and I will not hear it.
Yeah.
That's how mine manifests. And so you can understand the clash that her and I have had. And she was only diagnosed with ADD like 5 years ago. So she didn't even understand that she had that. I didn't even understand that she had it because it didn't manifest itself in any way that I knew. Yeah. Because I never knew any women with ADD. So
that's crazy you explain it that way too, because I tell people, like, Tony would pick up a guitar, and if he's playing a song, he can't hear you. And nobody would understand, like, what do you mean he can't hear you? I'm like, I will say his name, Tony, 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 Tony.
It isn't
and
just
he
guitar
cannot
that
hear
does
you.
That. Yeah. It's and it's not that I can't physically hear, because once I realize I'm being called, then I realize my name was just called a million times. There's no bandwidth for me to be paying attention to anything else except what I'm doing in that moment. Yeah. And that's how, but it's been a blessing and a curse, right? Yeah. That's how I learned so much, so fast about so many different things, and become not expert, but very well versed in very specific things. And hobbies for a guy like me are absolutely essential. Yeah. They're about as essential as anybody would say medication is, because I need something to do with that energy, right? And the fact of the matter is, there's no stopping me. Once I find something that grabs me, there's no getting out of it. Yeah. There's no there's no stopping, right? That's what has my attention, and I'm gonna go all the way with it until I just don't anymore.
Yeah.
You know? So that's how I'm able to do a lot of different things, and I have knowledge about a lot of different things.
At one point it was pens.
Pens?
Yeah. Dad told me that you got obsessed with pens. I don't want to use the word obsessed, but or would you describe it as like, would you focus?
It's obsession for sure. Yeah. Pens? What are you talking about?
Said at one point, he's like, yeah, Tony's all into pens. I'm like, oh, it must be one of his things that he just...
Okay, there was a short phase where I was looking at fountain pens.
Oh, okay.
And I was, rehashing my cursive skills, which for those of you born after 2000... We did this thing in school called cursive. It was required, and I still know how to do it.
Wow. Back on the topic of, I just had this visual in my head when you were talking about you focus on one thing and I can't hear you. I just had this visual of like you sitting here focusing on your one thing, and Heather's 500 tabs around you going, Tony, 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 Tony. And so both of you are like not meaning to, but you're clashing because you can't answer the 500 tabs that are poking you.
Yeah. Well, she had all this time, the whole 11 years, to experience that and understand that there was a reason for it. I haven't had that with her, so so I've got to learn about it, and there's resources for that, And so once I get the bug, I'll get into it, and but the thing is, with all that, like all of the kind of confusion and heartache that has caused, like we're still stuck together for some reason, right?
Yeah.
Just. That's how it is. I don't want to let her go. I don't think she wants to let me go. And then this new paradigm of our relationship where I'm there is going to be quite a ride.
Yeah.
There's probably going to be, some tough times, but, it's, I don't know. But we're both different people. I'm absolutely a different man.
That's what I was just going to say. After 5 years, you guys have had 5 years of like discovering more about yourselves.
Right. Well, I can only speak for myself, but yeah, I'm absolutely a different man than I was 5 years ago. Just temperamentally and the way I see myself as a man, the way I see masculinity and its role and its fusion with femininity, the way I understand it from an evolutionary aspect, from an aspect of nature, like it just completely flipped my whole world around. We do not know our own nature, and I grew up with a sense of the way things are that just was not real, and it caused me a lot of trouble that I just didn't understand when it came to women. I just didn't understand. I'm such a nice guy. Why do they leave me? Or why don't they like me? I just didn't understand that I just didn't understand. I don't want to get too far into it, but
that's okay.
Needless to say, I think I'm still a good man, trying to be better at being a man, but I'm not a nice guy anymore.
Nice guy defined as doormat. Nice guy.
Well, if you could define it that way, but there's a lot more to it.
Because you're a nice dude. But I think you're
to be.
By you saying I'm not a nice guy anymore, you're not an asshole, but not the nice as like if you were to define nice as I don't let women walk all over me anymore.
I don't let my masculine sexual nature control how I am with females. It used to control how I was with them, and now it doesn't. And it's really hard too, because it's Sexuality is probably one of the most fundamental aspects of male nature. And there's a certain group of people that kind of wants to beat it out of us, and they don't understand that that's a very dangerous thing to do, because luckily I turned out okay for the most part, but a lot of boys that don't grow up with a positive masculine influence in their life become school shooters. They become rapists. They become criminals. Masculinity in itself is not toxic. Masculinity is a very specific thing, and it's an aspect of nature. Masculinity needs to be harnessed. It needs to be controlled. Jordan Peterson talks about being dangerous. Like you, if you're a man, you need to be dangerous. That doesn't mean that you're not a good person. I think, harnessed masculinity, you control that dangerousness, right? If you look at any person that's into karate or jujitsu or fighting or whatever, like, they have the ability to basically control their environment when it comes to people, but they don't always do it. They don't always use it. They learn how to control it. They learn how to manage it. Most of them do. But so that's basically what has changed for me, is that I've understood my nature as a man, masculinity, its function, and its function, how it really, I think that the masculine and the feminine are complementary. They have the strengths and weaknesses, and together, like the yin yang, that's, they fit together. We are built genetically, evolutionarily, to be together and cooperate. There are certain groups of people now that don't want that cooperation anymore. They don't believe that is a good thing. And I think we're seeing a lot of problems now that aren't ever talked about that, come from that. And I think, I don't want to freaking ramble about this shit, but yeah, that was a big change for me, and I learned it late in life, and that's really a bummer.
Yeah.
Because those ghosts.
Yeah.
Those ghosts of data, they're never going to go away. So
I have another question for you, which I like to ask everybody at the end of each episode, and that is, if you had one piece of advice that you could give to the world, what would it be?
To the world?
To the world.
Like everybody?
Everybody.
Well, I don't know about the world, because I don't know the whole world. I've never left the continental United States. I know things are very different in other places, but at least for people in my region of the world, I guess I could say that things are not always as they seem, or are things are not always as you are told they are. And it's a lot of work and a lot of effort that most people don't want to do, because they're working the 9-to-5s and they get home and they just want to veg out or, spend time with their families, but things aren't what they seem to be. And I guess mostly learn the truth about your own nature as yourself, your own nature as, man or woman, if you're a man or a woman, your own nature as a human being. Because the reality is, we are the same thing that we were 100,000 years ago. The only difference is we figured out how to make cars and computers and build, these great houses and have air conditioning and refrigeration. That's the only difference, is that we figured stuff out over a long period of time. But we still have the same programming, right? Or I should say firmware instead of software.
Yeah. We
have the same firmware we have had for hundreds of thousands of years. We are a specific thing, and we are not what we've been led to believe that we are. And one of the greatest life-changing things for me, over the last few years, has been understanding that and understanding what my nature is as a human being on Earth and as a male, as a man. And like I said before, our nature is a very specific thing, and it comes from thousands, millions of years of evolution. And we think that we have total free will, but we're locked up by that aspect of our nature. We can only be certain ways. And learning about that stuff was just completely transformational. And when you learn the truth about that stuff, you start to realize a lot of the things that we're told by society and by government and by, TV and entertainment and all that isn't really reality. It's just not the way things work. And so much of that has been going on for so long that we just don't know who or what we are. We don't know who or what we are. We have no understanding of it. And as we can see, it's causing a lot of really serious problems that I don't think are going to get fixed anytime soon. And it's a real shame. That's understand your own nature as a human, as a female, as a male, as a person. That's it.
Perfect. Ladies and gentlemen, Tony Parrovechio signing off.
Take it easy.
Until next time.